Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Welcome to our CA Performance Management 3.6 release enhancements presentation. Before we get started with today's session, I just want to let you all know that all phones have been placed on mute. At the end, we will open it up for Q&A. However, you can ask questions at any time. To do so, simply use the Q&A box that's provided in WebEx itself, and that's located in the bottom right of your screen. If you don't see your Q&A box in the lower right of your screen, just click on the question mark that's located in the top right, and it will open up the Q&A box for you. So with that being said, you want to know what's new in network operations analytics? Let's listen in as Jeremy Rosebach and Jason Normanton walk us through it. Fellas, it's all yours.
Thank you, Joe. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jeremy Rosebach, Product Marketing Manager for the NetOps Suite, and once again, I'm joined by our Product Manager, Jason Normanton, who's going to walk us through the top 5 release enhancements for the latest version of CA Performance Management 3.6. We're just coming off from Cisco Live, so maybe some folks that are listening in now were down in Orlando and stopped by our booth, but we had a great time, had a lot of traffic, and talked to a lot of folks about what we're going to talk about today. The latest releases, software-defined network monitoring along with traditional. It was a really, really good time. I just have a couple slides just to let folks know of what's out there. Just posted this morning the top 5 reasons to upgrade to this latest version. I'm going to put all these links inside the chat window, so don't worry about trying to memorize them. So please download that PDF after the webcast. If you haven't seen the blogs that we've been putting out there since March, a lot of great content, technical content, on everything from a converged NetOps dashboard experience to Cisco ACI monitoring to SD-WAN monitoring to OpenAPI, and so many other topics that were put out there. Finally, in just a few hours, Jason and I are going to be doing a webcast on SDX Central, where we're going to be talking specifically about how CA can help customers out there realize the full value of their ACI and SD-WAN investments. So again, I'm going to put these links in the chat window. Maybe you can join us in just a few hours for that topic. Jason, one more. And then finally, even tomorrow, I think this Critical Guide to Modern Network Monitoring ebook is going to be launched. I will let everyone in the communities know where to download it. It's part of a new digital campaign that we're launching, specifically, again, on Cisco ACI and SD-WAN monitoring, but encompasses all of SDN monitoring along with traditional network monitoring. We believe it's a critical guide, a critical handbook for not only the leaders in NetOps, but the engineers and end users as well. So look for that in a posting coming very soon within the community. And Jason, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it. And thanks, everyone, for taking your time this morning. As always, it's appreciated. And let's jump right in. We got a lot to show this morning. So we're going to focus on the top 5 themes, which encompass a number of enhancements that are included in the 3.6 release. We'll be hitting GA very, very soon. We've wrapped up the RTM, and now we're going through we're on the paperwork side of things. So this release is very much on the cusp of GA. There's a lot in this release. I'm going to say that right now. You're definitely going to want to check out the what's new documentation and the release notes, because what we're going to talk about, what we're going to show here, represents a fraction of what we have included actually in this 3.6 release. So a lot of value, and there's certainly a lot of reasons why 3.6 should be an upgrade destination, I think, for everyone. It's definitely introduced a lot of features. So we're going to talk about our NetOps Alarm Console. For many of you, this is a theme that's recurring and will continue to recur. And if you're a Spectrum customer, this certainly is very exciting for you as well, as we really begin to see the fruits of our labor when it comes to the unification of fault and performance within the NetOps console. We've extended our PDF reporting capabilities in CA Performance Center as well in the 3.6 release. This comes a big sigh of relief from a number of customers who were struggling with some of the limitations which we had within our PDF reporting process. So I'll walk through what we're doing there, what we've done there in this release. Hopefully this solves, I think, a lot of the issues folks were having. We've also introduced means to begin to drive automation, self-healing through our event action scripts, and also how we're tying that into things like the OpenAPI and enhancements we've made to the OpenAPI in this release as well, to look at SD-WAN capabilities, for example. We've added a new baseline threshold evaluation mechanism, percent from baseline. We'll talk about this as well. This opens up some new opportunities to get alerting based off of changes within your environment that might be small, might not represent a standard deviation. If you have traffic that is, or if you have a metric that is consistent and the values don't differ much, it's difficult to get alerting on that. Something like temperature, where it's going to be steady state, but then you might have a spike, things like that. And we'll talk about that more. And then we've introduced a number of workflow and user experience enhancements related to our Cisco ACI platform, and we'll talk about those as well. So from a NetOps Alarm Console, we really wanted to enable some key use cases, and speaking with our customers, both customers that leverage Spectrum today as well as those that don't. What are they looking for from an alarm console perspective? So we know we want to be able to view fault and performance in a unified and easy-to-use way through a web application. We don't want to require a Java client or anything that's going to require upkeep or administration of a large number of client systems. So we wanted to be able to make that web that web alarm console, more accessible and allow it to be easily accessed and in a way that is going to provide assistance to troubleshooting workflows. We want the experience to be intuitive. We want to leverage some of the best practices, but we also want to innovate and look at new ways of doing things as well. So Spectrum has a strong pedigree. It's been around for a while. It's established some very good and strong operational patterns, and we didn't want to disrupt those. We wanted to continue to enable those, but we wanted to look at, well, what opportunities do we have to innovate above and beyond that experience? We want things to be intelligent out of the box, but we want things to be adaptable as well, right? So you want to be able to fire up the product and not have to spend, 6 months trying to get it configured properly. You want things to come out of the box in a way that represents a good percentage of our use cases, and then allow the product to be tailored and tweaked to meet specific requirements and specific user requirements and specific workflows. So there's a lot of capabilities to customize what's shown, customize what's available to any user or any role. I need to use alarm filtering. This is a critical aspect. We realize with the Alarm Console being able to have robust filtering in place, so that you can really ensure that you don't miss anything. You want to be able to filter what can be a large volume of information into very specific lists of information. So you want to be able to only focus on certain aspects, to be able to keep an eye on things, for example, or only see my critical alarms that have not been acknowledged, things like that. Those alarm filters need to be shared within a team. You need to be able to create and share and modify and use, create private. There's a lot of use cases and workflows around that we'll talk about. And I need to be able to view the events associated with an alarm as well. The alarm is one part of the story. There's one or more events that is driving that alarm, and there's a history of events as well related to that device and the other components on that device, which becomes critical information in the triaging and troubleshooting process. I'm going to go pretty quick through the screenshots I want to get to demo. So we want to be able to have a nice, clean UI. We want to be able to maximize the space that's available for information while not overwhelming the user. We want to provide customizable controls for the columns that are going to be displayed, so that can be tailored based off of your operations team's requirements or best practices. And we've also modified the design to move to a vertical layout, also giving us the ability to control which sections are going to be provided or shown to any given user, and be able to really, again, control the look and feel of that display to maximize what your operations team can do, including things like the grid height. So depending on where this is being displayed, you might want to maximize the available space to the grid and really increase that grid height, or you might want to shrink it down. Again, we wanted to be able to provide that level of flexibility, and then turning on or off any of those sections really allows you to have a role-specific workflow that's tied to the Alarm Console and what information is shown and what actions can be taken. We wanted to provide quick access to performance data. So in our first iteration here, what we've done is we've added the ability to quickly launch an on-demand report. So from an alarm or from multiple alarms, you can get to performance data in a couple of ways. The first being clicking on the contextual link that we provide within the alarm panel, or in the alarm details, there's also sometimes clickable information. So being able to get quickly to the context page for that thing, assuming that it's being monitored for performance. Obviously, if it's not in the performance management system, there's no context to drill in. But we also wanted to provide the on-demand report option as well. This is step one of what we're doing here. So basically what you'll get here is you select one or more items, you click on demand, and you're able to then generate an on-demand report for those things, assuming that they're all supporting at least one subset of metrics among them. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. And alarm filters, again, we want to be able to easily build and use those. We want to edit them, save them. We want to use and or Boolean logic. We want to support various attribute types, hide and show, depending on what those attributes are. And then you want to be able to quickly view those results within the filter and make it clear to the user what filter is being leveraged, so that the information on the screen can ensure that they're looking at what they're expecting to see. We all know in operations, a missed alarm is a really bad thing. So we want to make sure that, again, the capabilities exist for your teams to leverage best practices and leverage a lot of the same workflows that you might have today within the Spectrum one-click thick client. We want to be able to share and manage alarm filters as well. So users are going to create specific filters based off of their roles and responsibilities. Groups may have certain filters that they want to share amongst each other, and organizations may have overall best practices that they want all of their operations teams to leverage. In those cases, we wanted to be able to handle all of those. So whether it's for you, whether it's for users with your role, whether it's for everyone within a tenant, or whether it's just for a specific subset of users or roles, the capabilities exist to be able to very quickly share, very quickly take advantage of filters created by others, and very quickly be able to create filters for your own personal use or consumption. All right, let's move on to a demo. So here I have a view looking at the Alarm Console in the Performance Center. This is leveraging the new white theme. If you'll notice the major changes here are, well, it's white, that's an obvious thing, but we've also moved to a vertical layout for our menu options with a horizontal cascade, which provides much better access to all of my dashboards, including my alarm view. This view, as we have today, we see how it's configured. We can open up the configuration. We can see we have various sections which can be enabled or disabled. You control things like the maximum alarms, the ping count. We can say which severity we want to sort on, severity descending or severity ascending. We can control our grid height, and then we can control or show or hide various sections of that as well. We can also pin this view to a custom filter. So if I have any filters that I want to ensure are always leveraged out of the box, we can automatically enable those filters when the page is rendered. We can do the same thing for custom time range, and we can also lock that view onto a specific subset of things. You can have more than one alarm console in a dashboard, so you can begin to combine various controls to really customize and tailor fit how these alarms are going to be displayed for your users in your environment. Let me return this to the default. Okay. So here we have, with our default view, you'll notice we have the sections there, and what we can do, let's say we have sorting on severity. Again, we can sort that ascending or descending. This descending, we can sort it ascending. So we can look at criticals at the top, and you'll notice some of these columns have hyperlinks. This is the drill out to the context page for that particular item. Some of them do not. The ones that do not represent, these are items being monitored in Spectrum that are not being monitored for performance, and there's several reasons for those. These, for example, are event models. This, for example, is a link. This is a container. Things that are not specifically monitorable for performance in the NetOps console will still going to show up for sure. You can still get the entirety of the alarms, but you're not going to be limited to only those monitored for performance. So, for example, if we take a look at this one where we have high aggregate CPU utilization, this major alarm, we can scroll down and we can see that the alarm details pane has been reorganized as well, so it's a lot easier to view. We have all of the key information here, and then the specific information about the alarm. Within here, you can pull up the neighbor topology. This one's not very exciting, but then you can pull up the events, and this is an important piece that we've added in this release. We're able to view the events associated with either the device or the device and its components. We include various time ranges, 4 hours, 8 hours, 24 hours, or you can look at today's or the current weeks. We have rich tooltips, so we can provide the user with visibility into what each of these does. So, for example, if I change this to, say, device components over the last 24 hours, this is going to give me all of the events over the last 24 hours that have occurred for this device and any of the components related to this particular device. You can see there are different events corresponding to this particular device for various components. Again, some of them are being monitored, so you can drill right to the context page from these events, or you can launch the context page directly from this link. As I mentioned, you can also launch an on-demand report, which brings up our screen to generate an on-demand report. And then you can choose, based off of the metrics that are available, you can choose which metrics you'd like to see in that particular on-demand report. And then you can run or you can save that report and generate that trend report or that on-demand report, depending on exactly what you're looking for. I want to talk about alarm filters. Again, another really important part about what we're doing here. So you'll see a new filter UI here, a new filter box. In previous versions, this just allows you to filter on criticality. Now you see as I expand this, there are a number of filters that I have, for example, in this particular instance. For example, I have one that only shows me threshold profiles. I don't have any threshold profiles today, but we can look at things like only critical alarms, for example, and then we can also edit those. So if we go to Manage Saved Filters, we can look at those and we can say who they're modified by, and we can open that up. We can determine which users or roles we want this particular alarm filter to apply to. We can edit that, or we can create a new rule from scratch. Rules are very easy to create. You simply define the scope if this rule will be used for. Say if it's only for my use, and we can define it, give it a name. Again, a tooltip and a description so that it's easy to remember what it's doing, and then you can build out your conditions. So, for example, maybe we want to have, we want to show if the model class is a container. Let's do that. And maybe we want to say, and we want to do the severity. We want to hide anything that's minor, normal, maintenance, initial. Basically show everything that's either critical or major. We want to hide, suppress as well. So you can see how the way that you can combine and then either hide or show, there's a lot of flexibility here. I can save that, and then I can easily apply that rule. And I can see that we have this container, which represents a SD-WAN alarm that we have built. And you can see how quickly that filter applies. And again, being able to then manage those filters and control, maybe I've created this rule and tested it, and I want to share this out for my team. I can go and I can say all users with my role. So if I have an operations role, for example, all of those users would have access for the entire group. Or if I want to say, hey, I know specific users that I want to give access to, I can define that there, and then I can pick my user. So maybe I say, oh yeah, my buddy user 2 over here, he wants to have access to that as well. So then when user 2 logs in, they'll have access to that my role capability as well. Okay. We're going to go back over to our presentation. Let me check the Q&A panel real quick before I move on. There's a lot to cover this morning, so I'm trying to be judicious here.
Jason, you're all good with the Q&A. Nothing's in there yet.
Okay, cool. All right. Reminder, if you have any questions, entering through the Q&A panel is probably the easiest way. I'll stop after this section, and we can take any live questions. So the next area I want to talk about is PDF reporting, enhanced PDF reporting. Popular demand for sure, 187 total votes on a subset of the requirements and a subset of the items that we've built in to our new PDF rendering mechanism. Again, we know that these requests have been out there, some of them for quite a while, so we're happy we're finally able to get in there and bring this to reality and satisfy a number of those requirements. So what use cases are we hitting? Well, we're hitting a lot of them now. We had some real limitations previously with what we could do. We've pretty much removed those limitations, and now PDF reporting is going to be far more robust. So scheduling PDF, you're going to get a full dashboard, for example, multi-page views. If you can schedule a context page, you can get all the tabs and all the pages within a context page. So that eHealth at-a-glance report, that's now very easily doable by just rendering a context page for the given item. We know customers want to continue to be able to do what they're doing today, so we didn't want to remove that capability. We wanted customers to be able to access these full PDFs via a report link. We wanted to save them to disk. We wanted to be able to allow them to access their reports from the web UI. Unauthenticated access was important. We wanted to be able to use CAPC as the file storage for these PDFs. We wanted to be able to control the timing on how long these files remain in the file system. We wanted to implement health and management so that we wouldn't overrun the file system. This is one of the larger features we've worked on, and I know it sounds quite simple, and we've had a number of comments about, well, why can't we just do this? And it took us the entirety of the release, basically a subset of our team focusing on this to bring this into reality. So we're really excited about what we've been able to do. On the surface, it seems like not a heck of a lot. These are the ones that can get frustrating to end users because, like, why can't you just add this? It seems so simple. And then when we dig in, that's where we find out that, yeah, there's a lot sometimes involved here. So the primary things that have changed here is there's now an option for security, and that's if I send a web link to a user, that user may or may not have access to CA Performance Center. They may be a user, or they just may be an executive, a line of business owner, and someone else that does not have an account. We wanted them to be able to access that PDF sent as an email. Obviously, if it's an attachment, there's no issues there. The PDF's already attached, but if they're going to access it from our file server, we wanted to allow that unauthenticated access. And then you can choose the scope, and that's going to be all pages of multi-page views or the first page of multi-page views. And multi-page views represent any view on a dashboard where all of the data does not fit on a single page. So you have page 1, page 2, page 3. Maybe it's 100 per page, and you have 600, so there's 6 pages. This gives you the capability to render all of that data to PDF rather than only getting a subset of that. And then our previous enhancements to the scheduling UI about being able to schedule the time frame, the day, and also control the duration and time zone are all big improvements that we made in previous releases. And now coupled together, I think we have, and we're really strong ability to generate reporting capabilities using the CAPC dashboards. We've also made some significant improvements to the My Reports UI page. So this is a page where, depending on which user you are, if you're admin, you'll see all users. If you're yourself, you'll see yours. What you'll see is your scheduled reports. You'll see a lot more information than you used to. You'll be able to get to that if it's a PDF that's being sent via attachment. You'll be able to click on that report name and get the report without having to find that link again. You're going to get information as to the type of report, who the report is for. You're going to get the subject. You're also going to get the context, which is a new feature we've added as well. That's going to give you what that report is being run against, which group, which device, which item. You have a control and understanding over the delivery mechanism, link, or attachment, and is also the permission if they require permission to log in to view that report or not. As always, of course, tenant restrictions are always followed, so there's no concerns about one tenant being able to see another tenant's reports. And then these columns are customizable again, so we can tell you the last runtime, the next runtime, the next scheduled runtime in the time zone of that particular user. So again, if there's questions, why didn't I get my report, you can go right in here. You can look at that last run, next run time frame and make a determination very easily as to what's going on. This information is stored in a file folder hierarchy. By default, it's on CAPC, but you can change that to any file system that's mounted on CAPC. We organize this data within the tenant and the duration. We start in a localized date, and then we do by the type and timestamp. We give the PDF report, and we also give a metadata file in JSON format. So if you're doing something with scripting to move reports from one place to another, we wanted to be able to provide a programmatical mechanism that you can understand specifically what any given report is about. So we have that JSON metadata file that gives just about everything that you need for that particular report as to who can view it, what is it for, where is it, all that information. And then you can control from a time frame perspective how long these reports stay around. This is all configurable on the CAPC system. And then in our system health view, we're also going to show you information about that schedule repository, how much of it is being used, how much is free, and we'll automatically trigger that health to a problem if we're running low on space. And the nice thing is you can set that space limit, so you can control how aggressive or how lax you want to be. So if this is stored on the CAPC file system itself, you probably want to have some pretty strict requirements so that you don't worry about filling up the disk of the web server. But if this is just on a mounted NFS drive, maybe you can be more aggressive and set that that tolerance to be, much less free space requirement. All right, let's move back over to the demo. So the first thing I'm going to show you is the schedule reports UI. So I'm logged in as admin, so what I'm seeing is all schedule reports. You'll see I have a number of users as the owner. We see our subject. We see our recipients, the schedule, including the time zone, and that report is scheduled for, again, a new feature that was added in the previous release. The type, PDF full, PDF, or CSV, whether that scheduled job is enabled or not, the next runtime, the last runtime, the size of the last report, and a link to that last report. As I mentioned, you can add many other columns, including the information on the tenant. You can do information on the context, as I mentioned, the delivery mechanism, whether it's link or attachment. So again, in a multi-tenant environment, if I am the overall admin, I'm going to be able to see across multiple tenants. If I'm locked into one, if I'm administrating one tenant, or if I'm logged in directly into that tenant, I'm only going to see one tenant. Again, as you would expect this to work. So what happens when we schedule a full report? Let me walk you through the methodology. So here I have a dashboard. You can see I have views set up that do different things. We have some card views that have a number of items. We have our table gauge. We can see there are 7 pages on each of these. We have some scorecards. Each of these scorecards has multiple pages. Here we have a single page, another scorecard with multiple pages. As you can see here, we have a bit of a mix and match as to the capabilities of each of those views. So if I wanted to schedule that to be reported, I can open up the schedule. I can choose the delivery person. I can type a little message. I can control the format. Again, PDF. That's going to be existing capability that you've known today. And CSV, same thing. And then depending on if you choose PDF, you're going to get the first page of multi-page views or the all pages of multi-page views. I can control whether I want portrait or landscape layout. And then I can choose the frequency. Run now. I can run that weekly. Maybe I want to run that weekly Monday morning at 6 a.m. Eastern time. And I want that to always be for the previous week. Very easy to do in the product now. And now I've set this report up. Can require a login to see reports, or I can disable that. I can save that new report, and when I go to my scheduled reports view, that new report will pop up. Just one. Yep. And it's calculating the next time, so it's entered that job in the schedule, and then so next Monday morning at 6 a.m., that report will be generated. Well, just like Julia Childs would do in her cooking shows, we're not going to wait that long. So what I do, let me share out the rendered version of this. I did that in a run now, which is also supported for the full PDF. So you're able to also get that information directly to your end users right away. So here we have the PDF report. And as I mentioned, we had a number of views. So the first is the card view. We had 73 items in that view. The next was my CPU with 63. We have memory again. And then we get into these table views that were only 10. If you remember, there are only 10 rows in that each page within that dashboard. You can see how the entirety of that's rendered now. We can see how we're looking at the scorecard. We can look at that memory utilization, again, and the other scorecard, and then the larger scorecard with the health scores. You can see how we removed those limitations, opened this up for you to get a lot more data. And one thing you're going to notice is that, hey, wait a minute, my layout was 2 columns in the dashboard. So because we know that different views can have various lengths, so it's very possible that you had a view that only had 8 rows in the left column, and in the right column you could have a view that, if we showed it all, would have 1,000 rows. If we render that on PDF, you're going to have a lot of empty space. So when we do PDF, for full PDF, we basically change the layout to always show single column. So you're going to get a nice layout. You're going to get the information is going to be well placed. Data is not going to be compressed. You're not going to lose, you know, half the column of 48 pages of your PDF report. The entirety of that report will be there. All right. Oh, good stuff here. Let's take a look and see if we have any questions yet. And no Q&A. Let me stop here and we'll take any live questions before we move on. Here we go. All right, so we got a question from John Miller here. Any documentation, additions, enhancements for how to produce trend at a glance health type reports from CAPC? You know, that's a great question. Let's take a look. So I'm going to go over to a device. So in eHealth, I could generate, for example, an at a glance report for a router. Well, we can do that too. So I'll click on a router, my New York data center router, for example. That brings me to my context page. Now, a context page is basically akin to an eHealth at a glance report, right? It's about one thing. and it shows various technologies related to that one thing. If it's an interface, I'm going to look at interface utilization, flow, CPQoS, things like that. If I'm looking at a device, we're going to see CPU, memory, then we're going to get a top end for things like interface, utilization, discards, those type of things. So for example, you know, we have a top end interface utilization, and you can see it's going to be for every single interface on this device, I'm going to get an interface utilization trend chart. So again, this is similar to what eHealth was doing in its at-a-glance report, which is taking all the data that one would need if they want to do a quick glance at a particular device or a particular item. So for this router, I can go and I can schedule a PDF report. I can do, the subject is router pages, which is just a thing. I can change this here. I can say New York data center edge at a glance. Here is your and I can do that as, again, PDF or CSV. I have my portrait or landscape, and then I can do all multi-page views on this particular tab, or all multi-page views on the context page. So if I just want to see, hey, I want to see this interface utilization for this this router as a standalone report, I can do that. Or I can say, well, I want all of the router pages. I can do that as well. So I can get rid of this, require a login to see reports if I don't want that, or I can keep that on there. And now I can do, again, a run now. This is going to go, it's going to send a request to the back end, and it's going to generate a report that has all of the data from all of these entries. Now, a number of these are OpenAPI apps. Unfortunately, we do not have rendering for OpenAPI apps yet. It's something that we are working on. So what will happen currently is you'll have blank, the views will, you'll have the view name and then the view will be blank. We definitely want to look at doing something in the future, but if you're not using OpenAPI apps, you know, you're going to be able to get access to all of that data very quickly, very easily. Let me see if that report has finished up yet. It has not. So that's still running in the background. So I'm going to move on, and when that finishes, I'll keep an eye on it, and I'll bring it up and we can take a look. I hope that answers your question, though, because it's really important, because that's kind of how we know we want to go after that. And that's because we have a lot more flexibility in our context pages. You can add things, remove things. You can do that with the eHealth at-a-glance reports. Whatever we provided you, you could have that. This is a lot more flexible, but follows that same approach of, hey, you're going to see everything that you need to know about one given thing. Yep, so a group of specific interfaces for sure. You could do that through our standard dashboard mechanism against a group. That's going to give you those capabilities to look at any aspect within the, within the system, any metrics or number of metrics, any really dashboard that you have. You can run a report against that, specify a group, schedule that, and now you have a specific group report as well. Again, consumable very easily in CSV. Just taking a look to see if our lovely little report has shown up. Keeps going in the junk drawer for some reason for me, but here it is. It's open. Let me open it up. I believe I'm still sharing. Oh, not downloaded yet. This is a biggie. This is a big boy, I think. Not yet. Still, I think it's still the process of rendering here. Nope. Damaged. All right, we'll give that another minute. I think it's still cooking. I don't want to open the oven door too soon. All right, so let me go back over a few more areas to cover, and I know we're running out of time. Could go on all day here about this stuff. It's some good stuff. So I will check back in on our souffle in a minute, but for now, let's continue with the next part. So scripting from event notification. So we know we can generate threshold events in PM, and we can send those to Spectrum. We can do all sorts of neat things. But one piece was missing was we couldn't fire a script from an event. This is something that other tools have been able to do, and we really wanted to enable this because it really provides a key event. And a key event meaning that's something that I can take an action off of. So I can configure a script when a threshold is violated or cleared that can do different things. It can enhance the event data so I can add additional information in my script and then resend that alarm or event over to my either Spectrum or whoever is receiving my events. I can send events to multiple trap destinations using something like Trap Exploder, or I can drive automation and self-healing. We can start to do intelligent things once we can begin to interject ourselves within that event stream. That adds an ability to add logic into the sequence of events that comes between a threshold being violated and an alarm being raised. And there's a lot of opportunities to do interesting things. So it's very easy to configure. You will place a script in the directory provided in the documentation. It lists an example. That script basically can be anything that can normally be executed via a command line shell script, for example. It leverages serial execution, so we want to make sure that your alarm raises are handled and processed before your alarm clears, for sure. Sequence of events is very, very important in eventing and alarming streams, so we have that. And we have logging and timeout events as well, so if there's a script that's taking too long to finish, you can control that. And these parameters can be customized and tailored based on your environment and what your use cases are. The attributes passed in to your shell basically give you access to all of the information related to that particular event or alarm, much more so than what I show on my slide here. So let me minimize PowerPoint. Let me share out what we can do here. So there's quite a bit of information. So here is I have a very simple script set up that when an event occurs, either a raise or a clear, I run a script, and that script simply dumps the environment. So it runs a print env, so prints the environment of that shell. And in that environment, you can see I have access to all of these CAPM underscore events, including the name, information about the event, information about the alarm, when it occurred, all the things that you would need to be able to either pull in additional information to augment or refactor the event so that the alarm occurs in exactly the same way you'd like it to occur. Maybe the name is changed, things like that. And let me show you an example of what we've been able to do using this technology with our SDN reporting. So I'm going to bring up one of our SD-WAN dashboards. So we've done something very interesting with the ability to leverage these, basically a script to inject additional logic. So I have here what you'll see is an alarm related to a correlation domain. That correlation domain was created in Spectrum. And what I'm able to do because of that is I'm able to take a couple of events that would have generated alarms on a one-to-one basis. And because both of them occurred, I'm able to, using Spectrum's correlation engine, raise it to a critical and put these as symptoms. And both of these basically are threshold violations. In SD-WAN, we have basically out of a WAN connection, there are two paths, one over internet, one over MPLS. SD-WAN knows when the performance of either of those is not meeting the performance for any given application policy. So our script can be intelligent, and when that event fires, it will go and it'll check to say, hey, all right, we have an event. It's for this WAN site. It's for this application. Do we have any other paths for this WAN site that are still within the bounds for that application? So we did in one case, and then as the second one came in, we lost that. Now with scripting, again, we're able to say, okay, now there are 0 available. So that's when we're able to go ahead and generate a new alarm that's basically saying, hey, you don't have any WAN connections out of this site that meet your SLA. So a lot of intelligence here, and that's basically enabled because we can interject logic now between the event raise and the alarm raise, which adds a lot of flexibility and capabilities to what you're able to to do to minimize noise and to make your operations team that much more effective. Let me see if that report is finished. No, something's not happening right there. Anyway, I'll check again in a minute. Still cooking. Okay, great. So running short on time as always. I'm going back over. So the next item is looking at the new event capabilities related to baseline comparison. So the existing evaluation that we had uses the CA Performance Management baseline, and that baseline keeps track of information like average, min, max, standard deviation, things like that relate to the same hour and same day. So Monday from 9 to 10, for example, is always evaluated against other Mondays, 9 to 10. We don't have holidays, so Memorial Day, unfortunately, is not going to get treated any different. But that capability allows you to look at things that are outside the normal. Now, what we had previously was the ability to add how many standard deviations from the baseline was that particular data point being evaluated at that particular time. So Monday, 9:05 a.m., we have utilization at X%. How many standard deviations from my baseline average was that value? Can be a little bit tricky to A, understand, but B, also in certain environments where certain technologies have a little bit finer tolerances there, or the data does not deviate very much at all, you're able to now trigger a new event type that's going to allow you to do a percent of baseline. So temperature, for example, is a great example. So you're going to want to be able to look and see how far or how different is that from a percentage of the baseline. So if you want to make sure your temperature doesn't go 10% higher than it normally does, you can do that now without having to try to figure out what that would be in standard deviation. And sometimes that kind of computation is not even possible when you're looking at standard deviations. So this gives a nice, clean, simple ability to simply go in there and configure a percentage value compared to that baseline. So you could look at 20% below baseline for my interface utilization. That could indicate something's occurring where I'm not getting the normal traffic through for some reason. But it's, again, being able to initiate that alert, initiate that event, and then taking advantage of the capabilities to inject more intelligence through an action script is going to really drive the ability to do some very intelligent things and to really start to drive self-healing and self-remediation and much more intelligent alarming. So we're really excited about what you're going to be able to do, but what we're going to be able to do as well. So some really good stuff there. Those take a while to generate, so I'm not going to demo. Want to talk about ACI. So Cisco ACI, software-defined data center. It's a very popular technology and many conversations at Cisco Live, as you can imagine. One of their premier technologies that they're focusing along with SD-WAN. And there are a number of usability improvements we wanted to make there around navigation, around being able to get to information more quickly, getting the right information to the hands of the users, and driving a better understanding of the application dependencies. Let me do a quick demo there. So we're going to bring up our ACI console, and this is basically our dependency map viewer for Cisco ACI. What you see here is we've added a new section, our link section, so you're able to very quickly now jump to the ACI Health or ACI Switches overview, and this is to begin to provide operations team with some best practices and standard operating procedures. So for example, if I wanted to do something like look into my T-Exchange application, what we'll see now is we simplified and made that rendering a little bit nicer, allowing me to more quickly drill into the activity or the issues. So if I know I have an issue with an endpoint group, I can click right on that and get to the name. Or if I have an issue with a switch, I can click right on the switch. And that's going to bring me to the context page for that switch. I can view the alarms, if there are any alarms specific for that switch, and I can go to the ACI console, and it's going to now, in the context page, automatically filter. So I can go, if I have an alarm for this switch, and I click on it and go to the context page, I can see right away its relationship to my TixChange application. I don't need to do anything else. I don't need to try to find it. We're going to put it right where it needs to be, right there, right in your face, making it very obvious what the problem is. All right. So there's a lot, even top 5 content, there's a lot. We've added support in our OpenAPI for SD-WAN with some very interesting relationships that we've added. So, you know, being able to support devices, interfaces, my classes, tunnels, my applications, and then build those relationships to be able to make queries to tell me, hey, which sites are, you know, not meeting my SLA expectations for this particular application. Being able to do that in a single query, and then either taking that data as is or programmatically using that in an application or as a data export to another tool for visualization or further analysis. We make it super easy now by adding in, again, all of those SD-WAN relationships with aggregation capabilities that are going to allow you to do very interesting queries to really drive that understanding deeper of your SD-WAN technologies. And the last one I wanted to show, and didn't make the top 5, but I want to talk about it real quick. So we have a new scorecard. It's our 95th percentile max scorecard. So this is all about the details. So we had a use case where a customer has lots of groups and sites with interfaces in them, and they want to understand from a utilization perspective at the group level which have the highest individual interfaces 95th percentile utilization, so they can understand if there are capacity concerns for any given group. It's much easier to demo, so let me jump over, and this will be the last item I show today. So this is the new scorecard we have here. I'll open up the settings so you can take a quick peek. Basically, you can say the direction in, out, or total, number of time intervals. You include number of projections, again, setting your status to what it needs to be, either a dynamic or fixed context and time. So what we have here is I've just, real simple for the last 24 hours, created a scorecard looking at my North America grouping of sites, and we have Austin, Boston, Miami, New York, Santa Clara, and Seattle. Each of these values within each of the row now represents the single highest interface's 95th percentile. So it's the max of the 95th percentile individual for each interface. There's so many variations on how to calculate aggregations at the group level. We really wanted to start to look to special case some of these because the math becomes all important, and we need to make sure. So if you look what happens here, when I hide the Boston row and I look at my first time span, June 20th at 8 p.m., I can see I have 93.66. Now I've created a regular trend scorecard underneath it, locked into this group. So now what we're looking at is the individual components within that Boston group. Each of those interfaces has its own 95th percentile for that time period. What you can see is we have one for 93.66, 72.21, 32, and 13.67. If I wanted to understand the maximum, the highest value for the interfaces in that group, I would have 93.66. You can see how that lines up here. 94.36, see how it lines up here. We're not looking at taking all of the data and doing the 95th percentile. We're looking at each of these individually to understand if any one of them is having issues related to high or over threshold utilization calculated based off of the 95th percentile, which is a very accurate capacity planning indicator. So this is a very good example of how capacity planners can leverage our scorecards and can leverage our percentiles to be able to do very nice things like, do I have any sites where I have potential for capacity issues? And if so, where do those capacity issues reside? It might not make sense to have a scorecard underneath with every site, for sure, we understand that. So for example, I can then simply click on this Boston group, bring up my group context page, and then I can include that scorecard right in my context page. So again, very quickly I know that, oh, okay, it's my particular link that goes between Boston and Framingham. That's where I'm experiencing congestion. Everything else in that group is okay. I was alerted to this condition based off of this one particular interface. If you have lots of groups, this is going to be really, really helpful because you're not going to have to go hunting and pecking to understand which items within any given group are having a potential problem. And that's our questions. We're almost at the top of the hour. So if there are any questions online, I wanted to give a quick opportunity for those questions to come in. I'll check the Q&A panel again. I don't. All right, great.
Yeah, I got
any live questions.
Just got to point out Jim's comment. I love the enthusiasm there.
Good stuff, right? This release has turned out to be very much more than what we originally thought it was going to be, based off of once we put everything together. Quite robust and lots of improvements in this release for sure. All right. I think we're at about at time here.
Yeah, Jason and Jeremy, thank you so much for taking the time and walking us through this. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Just as a reminder, Jeremy did put the links that he referenced in the beginning of the presentation. He did put them in the chat. If you do not see the chat box, just take a look at the menu bar on the top right of your screen. Click on chat, and we'll open up for you, and you'll have access to those links. Again,
yeah, real quick, Joe, real quick, if you guys want to dive much deeper into SD-WAN and Cisco ACI monitoring, please join us at 1 o'clock Eastern today for that SDX Central webcast. Jason's going to go much deeper than he did today, and really exciting stuff. So.
Great, thanks for that, guys. Everyone, thanks again for joining. Hope you have a good rest of your day. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.